This past week, Bitcoin crossed the $20,000 mark, crushing its all-time high from 2017. But how much higher can it go? Could it go as high as $50,000 or as low as $14,000? The short answer, I think, to both of those questions is yes. Hello everybody, my name is Brandon from thestockstreams.com, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Bitcoin and why I think we could see prices as high as $50,000 but also as low as $14,000 in 2021. Let's talk about why. So there are a couple major positive factors or tailwinds that could cause Bitcoin's price to go higher. The first one of these is inflation. So inflation basically means that the $5 you have in your pocket now will be worth less over time, because over time the price of goods will rise. So that $5 will have less buying power over time. The reason why inflation is on the rise is because of the Federal Reserve, also known as the Fed. So the Federal Reserve is responsible for printing out money. And since March, the Federal Reserve has been printing out money like crazy. The reason for that is because of obviously what happened in March with all the shutdowns. So because we had all those shutdowns, people needed money. So the Federal Reserve did the right thing and stepped in and started printing massive amounts of money in order to fulfill those liquidity demands that small businesses needed. So at the time, the Fed did the right thing. People needed money, and the Fed had to give them money. The downside to this, however, is inflation. Because there's so much money on the street right now, the prices of goods will eventually rise over time because people have the extra money to pay for a little bit more expensive goods, and that will eventually devalue your own money in your bank account. So how does that relate to Bitcoin? People are buying Bitcoin because they believe that Bitcoin will grow at a faster rate than inflation does. So if inflation is rising at 2%, then Bitcoin maybe is rising at 8%. So you have a 6% gap where you're still making money. That gain of 6% is of course better than a loss of 2%, which you would have had if you just left your money in a bank account. The second reason of why I think Bitcoin could go as high as $50,000 in 2021 is because of the introduction of institutional investors. So institutional investors are professional investors that play with client money, and they play with millions and millions of dollars worth of client money. Because they have so much money, they have a lot of influence over what they invest in, whether it be stocks or in this case, cryptocurrency. Because successful investors like Paul Tudor Jones or Jim Simmons are beginning to invest in cryptocurrency, many retail investors like you and me are beginning to think that maybe cryptocurrency is also a safe place in order to grow long-term wealth. So I just gave two reasons of why I think Bitcoin could go as high as $50,000 in 2021. But now here are two reasons why I think Bitcoin could go as low as $14,000 in 2021 as well. The first reason I think Bitcoin could go as low as $14,000 in 2021 is because of its high volatility. On November 26, 2020, Bitcoin was trading in a 14% trading range. That means from the lows of the day to the highs of the day was a gap of 14%, which is huge in the investing space. And on that day, on November 26th, that was a negative 14% day. So you would have lost 14% if you were a day trader in Bitcoin on November 26th. Now there are days where some stocks could see differences of 14% between their lows and highs, but the frequency that Bitcoin sees these days are much greater than any individual stock. So that was volatility that we just saw on the downside, but don't forget there's also volatility on the upside as well with Bitcoin. For example, on December 16th, 2020, we saw Bitcoin rise 10% in a single day. So if you were day trading Bitcoin, you would have gained 10% on that single day. So if we just get a couple days of downside volatility, I think we could see Bitcoin coming in at $14,000 again. The main point here is that if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, you have to understand the volatility risks that are involved. You should be prepared for days that have big gains and also days that have big losses. My second reason of why I think Bitcoin could go as low as $14,000 next year is because of the value that Bitcoin actually has. Because Bitcoin has no intrinsic value and you really can't do anything with Bitcoin, the only reason why it has value is because we say it has value. This is actually a good thing and a bad thing. It's good if you own Bitcoin and enough people think that Bitcoin is worth $50,000. because if enough people think that, then it is worth $50,000. But on the downside, if people are beginning to think that Bitcoin is worthless, then it also will be worthless. So I mentioned 2017 in the beginning of the video because that was where everybody was interested in Bitcoin and the price soared to almost $20,000. But what happened after in 2018 or 2019? Do you remember anybody talking about Bitcoin during those times? If you look at the chart of Bitcoin here, it didn't do a whole lot in 2018 or 2019, and that's because people lost interest. I think if you're going to invest in Bitcoin, this is another risk you have to consider before you put money in. In my opinion, I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I think we could see prices as high as $50,000 for a single token, but also I'm concerned of a short-term pullback, where we could see a couple days of bad volatility because it just reached all-time highs. Investing in Bitcoin is inherently more risky than investing in stocks. So because of that, I'm only comfortable with putting in maybe 1, 2, or 3% of my portfolio into Bitcoin, whereas if I was investing in the stock, I would be more comfortable investing 6, 7, or maybe even 8%. In order to invest smartly, you have to manage your risks. And that's the reason why I would only allocate a very small portion of my portfolio for cryptocurrencies as opposed to the overall stock market. As always, thanks for watching. Head over to my website, thestockstudents.com, to check out our free stock screening tool that'll tell you if a stock is crossing technical indicators that could help you determine if a stock is a buy or a sell.